What does it feel like when your heart turns cold? I like when things get dark and mysterious. I guess that makes me messy and delirious. Hey, I'm young and I wanna have some fun. But I see some boys.
Hello and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G. And I'm here every Monday night on WEMS Radio bringing you spiritual conversations. I have different guests from all walks of life. They have different careers, they have different perspectives, and we come on and we talk about spirituality, current events, and whatever is going on in the moment. We just have a free flowing conversation that I hope leaves you with something that you can take away. And my goal is to bring the joy and have you live your best life with grace and ease. And so I bring guests on here in hopes that that's what you'll walk away with. Something that you can add to your spiritual toolkit. So today I have a very, very special guest, Leslie Butterfly Soul Taylor. I met Leslie at Momentum Education, and it seems like a lot of my people are from Momentum Education. So I'm sure if you've watched my show, you know that Momentum Education provides personal development training and workshops. Leslie Butterfly Soul Entertainer Butterfly is a trainer. He does personal development training for youth and adults. He's an actor, a comedian, a director. He's also a published author. And let me tell you, he can sing too. So I am excited about having I call him Leslie Butterfly Soul Taylor on my show. Come on in and let's have this conversation.
Hey there, you. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So, I put all those titles on you and all that. He has all those things. Introduce yourself to the people, right?
My name is Butterfly Soul. That's BUTTAFLYSOUL. You can call me Butter, BUTTA, not BUTTER. That butter is bad for your heart. This butter is good for your soul. Right? So Butterfly Soul comes from the book by Dr. Naeem Akbar, Visions for Black Men. He wrote this illustration on how Black men start off as butterfly. We start off as caterpillars and emerge as butterflies, hence the name Butterfly. And then Soul comes from one of my favorite books. Heaven and earth will pass away, but the word will stand forever. And I love being able to speak into the greatness of people. And so I want the words that I leave with you to always speak to your greatness. I want my legacy to be the last thing you heard from me. And the hope is that was something powerful and groundbreaking and earth shattering for you to move into something that you really want.
Yes.
Yes.
And I know. Yes. So let's start off with giving a little background on your early spiritual life.
Wow.
Sometimes I assume people you grew up in church, left church, came back. I got the story, right, of how it goes. Because I do find that a lot of people, they grow up in the church, they kind of walk away, and then they come back with a deeper or a new understanding, right?
Right.
So, guys, give us a little journey through your spiritual life.
It was back in Brewster's Projects. It was me and two of my good friends. No.
But honestly, so right, I thought of that. I was like, now I know he's from Chicago, right? And so my mind started going in all these places. Right?
All right. So I really did grow up in the Harold Ickey homes here in Chicago. And so the projects. And so early on as a child, my mom introduced me to the church. My father introduced me to the church, but I have a big sister who was much like a mom too. And I watched my sister go through becoming a Hebrew Israelite and becoming a Muslim. And so learning those, like having her change her name, and then like watching that process, right? Watching her faith walk, and then watching my mom be human inside of also being a Baptist, and then watch my father, be angry and violent, but holiness or hell, like really Pentecostal, right? And so I'm like, oh, so people are flawed. They go to church. This is good for me. I'm going. So my dad and my mom sang. So I was introduced to the church through gospel music, right? And then Chicago is like the northernmost part of Mississippi. If you know 4 people, 2 of them are either from Louisiana or Mississippi.
Or Memphis too. Memphis too.
Or Memphis.
Memphis is right.
So you have all of this churching, right? And so we went to church like it was clubs. So you had church on Sunday, and then you had midnight musicals, and then community choirs. So you had New G. I sang with New G for a little while. I sang with Mark Hubbard and United Voices for Christ. I had the pleasure of like hearing all these gospel artists, and just like that was my entryway as a young man. I learned that, and then I preached my first sermon at like 22.
Oh, okay. You're a preacher.
And so, and so what happened in that moment, right? I really fell in love with it. But that pastor at the time was like, you trying to take my church.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know this is where I begin this statement, and I say it now, but I said to him, I don't know, please forgive me, because I don't know how I showed up that made you think it was okay to talk to me that way. I'm out. So I left that church and went to another church.
Oh, okay. 12.
I got married.
Oh, okay.
And so my wife and I was attending this church, but that pastor at the time was having his own personal struggles inside of counseling us in the marriage and his own marriage. And since, his secretary, who he began sleeping with, was not his wife, it might have been tough for him to counsel us. So I was like, yo, I'm out. My wife and I got divorced. I left the church, much like what you said.
Yeah.
It was in me leaving church that I found God. I would get so upset, and I would drive all the way to the north side of Chicago, and I found this beautiful white building. It had all these religious symbols on it. And I walk in, I would later learn that it's the Baha'i temple.
Oh, okay.
I was just going there and sit. But every religion was represented, and I was like, wow. And then it got me to like wanting to really look at, what are the many languages of God and how can I speak them? Right? I want to be able to be in a room with a Muslim man, a Christian woman, an atheist, and then have, be able to have a conversation, but nobody feel shunned or shut out.
Right, exactly.
I recognize that God was an entryway, right? Conversation, but it was really how I showed up that will allow people to have the experience of God. So that's that's kind of
that's true. Oh, I like that. Is how you showed up, because I only learned about all the different religions when I was ordained as an interfaith minister. So I studied all of the religions at that point. And I studied them because I had no experience with them. I studied them and we practiced them at the time that we were studying them. And through that, I formed a deeper experience and a love for Christianity. I was able to accept it more in a way that understanding the Bible as a wisdom text, understanding that Jesus's message was for all of us and how to interpret that for me and my life, that became much easier for me. So it's interesting to step out and see other religions that then support you. Now I can practice all of them, right? Because I love all of them. And I used to love going to the Jewish temple on Friday nights. They would speak Hebrew. I did not know what they were saying, but it was a very powerful experience. I could read on the other side. It was in both sides, but there was more in the singing and everything that was going on that made it really powerful. So I get that. And then I like how you summed it up with God. How God shows up and how you can express God to anyone, no matter where you are. You can express that.
And not just express it, but be able to hear it. Because I think in like in the communication of like God relationship, it's almost like listening when somebody else is listening. It's really like stepping back and being a space. Listen, everything from Wiccan, voodoo, like
yeah,
if you really listen to the origins of those religions, it's like, oh, okay, got it.
yeah,
That
yeah,
doesn't mean I have to oppress you inside of my faith. It's really giving you space, right?
exactly.
That would
Yes,
be like me
exactly.
coming to your house and be like, well, you serving pork. I don't eat pork. And pork is the devil. And like, okay, I'll eat the salad. Like, it's cool.
Right, eat the salad.
Just don't put bacon bits in my salad. Like,
Yeah,
right? I want to be real clear. I eat the whole pig. But anyway, but that's my, except for chitlins.
right, yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, that's really my point. It's like, allowing people space to be themselves and not their faith role. For me, like even doing work with Momentum Education, it wasn't until I did their second course, which is called the advanced course, where I began to see God in other people. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and then being able to see it in that way, I couldn't unsee it.
Right.
Right. And so it was like seeing it in the murderer and the murder. And being able to really see that so clearly. Right. Even now, seeing it in the racist, seeing it in the race. Being really clear that, you know what? Your intentions might be actually pure.
Right.
But your focus is off.
Yeah.
You
Look
might
at that going.
It's one of those things where like when we're teaching people, like you can be sincerely wrong. Listen, I've been strong and wrong many a times.
Right.
Strong and wrong, convicted in the whole nine. I just had this conversation literally yesterday where I was strong and wrong. And then really had to go back and say, you know what? I was wrong. I apologize. And it felt good to be able to apologize because like I never want the burden of having to be right.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Not interested.
Right. Exactly. What came to my mind when you talked about Wiccan, I got to study Wiccan. And it was very interesting, their principles, right? And then I thought back, the reason why we thought it was bad, because in Christianity, they teach you that it's not good, right? And so then I got back to, wow, and then that was one of the things that was really interesting, is to be able to not have what we've been taught and learned stand in the way, being open to there is something else, right? And the spiritual conversations for me, really, it's about having that space to talk about what really works. What is spirituality? You talked about the church and going away from the church, right? Is there a space, though, to create the atmosphere of real church? We love the fellowship. We love the singing. I mean, I have been in many choirs, and by the time I finished singing, I was on my phone through the whole rest of it, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of that.
You never heard of that? Because I was only there to sing with the choir.
Yeah, like there was no message for you outside of the music. Like I think that's when women would come to the church where I was, I would say to them, like they would go, "Oh, well, all I have is pants." I was like, "Okay." If somebody asks you why you're not wearing a dress, give them your dress size and take a seat.
That's
because
good.
if you're that bothered by it, right, then you should fix it. My sister taught me that when in dating. that if you go and say, babe, I don't like your shoes, you better be prepared to replace them. And so for me, walking into like a particular, and then you have different people, like how people interpret the word of God.
Yeah, really.
Conversation of women like a Rev G in the church, right? We were taught scripturally that, you know what, women are to be quiet in the church.
Exactly.
However, if you study, you understand that the scripture that references that was really asking the women to be quiet because somebody was speaking. And they were too loud in the back of the room, right? But for years, people were taught that women should not speak. And I was like, that's interesting. When I think about all the women that have spoken into my life, I'm like, that's tough.
Right. It is. And I think that it's interesting when you say reverend and minister, people put a label on it. So I do comedy. And if I say I'm a reverend and I go up, most people think they call me a pastor or a preacher, or what church are you in?
Or a
and
Christian comic.
a whole thing. And I'm like, I'm not that kind of minister, right? Because I don't have a church, right? But I am, able to support you in your spirituality, your spiritual growth. And I probably could preach something, right? But my focus wouldn't be preaching in that sense, right? I rather I love the idea of talking about different spiritual practices that you could use. So for me, it's about creating that personal spiritual toolkit.
Yeah.
And also just creating the space to talk about it, And that's what I think. I grew up when we didn't talk about it, we didn't question it, we just let it go. And there's just so much to it, because at one point I was looking at youth in the church now, and there was a whole exodus of youth from the church. And one thing that I read was that they left the church. Partly, it wasn't that they disconnected from God because they had their own individual thing with God, but they disconnected from the church and community because they couldn't see God in that.
Well, how could they? Like, if you really think about it,
right?
Here's the thing about like what happens sometimes in church, and this is not all churches, because there's a church here in Chicago that I absolutely love to go to. I think too, like young people are taught to lie. They haven't really fully mastered it, and so I think when you stand up with them and say, "Don't do a thing," and they witness you doing the thing, it really creates something else in them. Like, you all are being like honest. Like, when you think about things, everything from adultery to sexuality, right? And everything in between and all the other things, right? But then some of these young people have been propositioned. Right? Never talk about that.
Right.
So their first experience of God and sex is through the church in some experiences. And so when those two meet, you also have tapped into this child's essence. And so now they're in query, but the sermon may be the things that they've attempted. God is like, no, based upon what this preacher is saying. And then sometimes the mistake is both by the preacher and then by how we believe, we stop having faith in God and we start having faith in the pastor. And we rob this person of their humanity. And so when they like make them, they cheat, Oh, you're a horrible person. I'm leaving the church.
Yeah, it falls apart. Let them do any human thing, right?
I'm like, they're human. Let them be healed. Like, if the church is a place for healing, why can't that be healed? You get what I'm saying? So I think that's the other, and then one of my favorites is like homosexuality is a sin, and in my mind, it's a sin for you. Yeah, it's natural for you to be homosexual, right? And so, like, you probably should try it, right? So that's what that looks like. That's what it looks like to me, and I think if all the gay people and the homosexual people got up right now and walked out of a church, you might have symbols, right? And you may you may have a good macaroni and cheese. I doubt if you have a good whole dinner, or a good choir, or a good sermon,
The
or a
choir
good
was
church hat.
gone.
Because and then
That was been the whole contradiction for me throughout, right?
oh my God, it's
Was
crazy.
it was like the whole choir, but yeah, you're preaching all this. This is wrong. This is wrong. Let us take it out of you. Come on down here. We're gonna pull it out of you. You're the worst. But sing that song, boy. Right. But you know the devil's in you. And so the contradiction to that, and the thing too for me is, and I am very much aware of in the Black community, the disconnection that will happen to you if you came out as a gay person, the church, the community, the family, during my time, right? There was just like a lot to lose. And now it's different. I mean, not altogether different because I still hear stuff, but changing, more acceptable for people to be who they are.
Well, I think too much of anything is too much, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I've been in liberation churches too, where Jesus was gay, right? And so it's like, dude, like that's a lie.
Yeah, right.
Like everything, like first I got, fire and brimstone, Jesus hates you over here.
Right.
And over here I got, the Kumbaya Quartet talking about, this verse, this all accepting Jesus, but we don't accept those people that don't love us.
Right.
And I'm like,
what a contradiction. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, what about forgiveness? But then not only that, because that's not the only focal point, that's where people live. Like, people be like, well, he murdered somebody, but ooh, he gay. You can't never get rid of gay.
Right.
Murderer can come in this church anytime they want.
Right.
And for me, it's like, stop telling people that the only thing that is magical about them is their sexuality.
Yes. What's that focus?
You give it so much. We give it so much power, and then when people come to have that's why you have people like doing so many crazy things in the name of God, right?
Yeah.
I think also when you talked about, why is it like that in the Black church? When you think about men in the Black community, there's a place of strength and power that many people look to us as men of color. Like they look in anything that is contrary to what we think is man is a threat, right? But like, if you look at just how fashion has transitioned and things like that, men are wearing smaller bags now, straight men, tighter jeans, things like that. And then you have a whole generation of like young people who are coming. Like I like preachers who bring a conversation about the word with immediate application attached to it.
Yes.
Because sometimes I might get the parable, but I want to know how this would apply on a day when I don't want to get out of bed.
Exactly.
Like how would this work? Right? Inside of that conversation, and like how can this move me to a different kind of conversation? And I want to be really clear. This is not to I think the church is good if you're looking for a moral compass.
Yeah.
I think it's really great if you're looking to be with yourself. Because I think often we can hear the preacher talk about God. It's something different when you're seeking to hear God's voice for yourself.
Yes.
Right? And so in a long time, in that quiet time, it looks different. Now, this is my only rule for anybody that's listening. If you invite me to your church like this, hey, buddy, you want to come to my church, Second Episcopal, Pentecostal, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, help me, Lord, Holy Ghost Temple number 2. If you do it with this face, I'm not going because you miserable too. If you show up with like some, hey, butter, we got a storefront, it's 6 of us in there, but we go in. I'm running to that church. Different church or a small church, because whatever that joy you got, I want a piece of it. What I had to do was be intentional when I walk into churches to only look for God. Because if I only met Christians, I would turn around.
Wow, that's a way of really doing it, and the fellowship of it all is great. And
Yeah,
I like what you're saying is walking out and walking away. Well, how does this work in my everyday life? How can I
yeah,
use that? Right. Very good. I had an experience. I like this guy here in Harlem at the First Corinthian Church. I think his name is Waldron. He is a great, great minister. I love it because he knows the word and he
yeah.
translates it so that when you walk out, you see how to apply it to your everyday life, which is pretty cool, to be able to do that, and it's interesting because even in my family, my brother will say to me, if I'm talking to somebody, he'll say, well, you should tell them about this scripture. I was like, I don't know how to do that, right? because that's not my thing, right? I don't know how to coach you and say, oh, buddy, you're like, oh, Gannett, I'm having this thing going on. And if you go and you read Proverbs 6, 8, 10, it's going to give you the exact answer to what you need, right? So I don't know how to do that because I don't know the scriptures like that.
If I'm coming to you and I'm telling you I'm having a bad day, the last thing I want to hear about,
It's a scripture.
I don't want to hear no scripture. I don't want to hear nothing about like, hey, who are you being? Choose like stuff we learn in transformation.
Right, you don't want to hear none of that.
I don't want to hear it. I have a dream speech. I don't want to. I may just be coming to you to say, hey, my feelings are hurt, and what I may need from you is a hug.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the difference too. I think we get to live our we get to live our walk. Right, we get to live our walk. That's why I'm all for like humanizing like preachers.
Yeah,
Stop
yeah,
thinking, listen,
yeah.
you go to a church and you know you're a gay man or gay woman
Mm-hmm.
or non-gender conforming or
Mm-hmm.
transgender,
Yeah.
and you know that this preacher talks about those people, but you
Mm-hmm.
love the church, you in the
Mm-hmm.
wrong church.
Yeah, absolutely. You
It's
have
just
to make
simple.
those
Like you don't
choices.
have to like boycott the church.
Right, right,
The
right.
people are still paying their tithes. The lights are gonna be on when you leave. Just go.
Mm-hmm.
Why would
Mm-hmm.
you stay there and be abused?
Right,
Go to
exactly,
a place
exactly.
that honors and speaks to you, and then have it be that. Listen, we all know the default sermon.
Right, we all do. Yeah.
When preachers can't preach, they go to the one thing they know everybody hates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whatever that thing is in that
Right.
particular church.
In
And
that church,
some
right.
churches, I've been in churches where the preacher preached your whole business.
Right, 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 right there.
Everybody can't, do it the way
Mm-hmm.
some preachers can.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
got a husband, but your husband got a friend,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't understand what's going on, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
talking to you, but I'm talking to you. And that person is sitting in the front going, I just
Right.
talked to him about that yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is
Yeah.
this the Sunday sermon?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like we gotta and then we have to be careful with that, but stop demonizing like pastors and even the church. I think if it makes you happy, go, but go to
So,
some place
right.
that edifies you, not
Exactly.
something that will, listen, I have
Make
a
you
bunch
feel
of
better.
stories and all that other stuff.
And it's a nice place to create community because as we
Yes.
talk about, we like momentum is my community,
Come
right?
on.
Because community, we love community. There's connection, and I love that this community because keeps me on my toes. There's always possibilities and adventure and what's next, and there's always an exciting what's next. And so in that community, I get to grow and expand,
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
your radio show is community.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Creating
your
that
radio,
community.
like I know prophets now that work for
Mm.
this radio station. Quite literally,
Right, right,
But
exactly.
like but that's what it looks like. Like it's all community. And I think it's important that we celebrate all of your communities. Celebrate
Mm-hmm.
all of your communities.
Yeah, yeah, all of them. No,
Yeah.
and I get that. I understand that. Let's shift a little bit and talk about your entertainment, entertainer, butterfly soul. Give us a little
Well,
bit.
back in no, so like I did HBO Def Poetry Jam in like
Mm-hmm,
2004, right?
mm-hmm,
And so, but for years I had been performing and really enjoying it. But the opportunity, thanks to a gentleman by the name of Steve Donaldson, Camila Forbes, Stan Lathan, like they saw me perform and was like, okay. They saw my tape, like, yeah, let's do it.
mm-hmm.
And it was a big deal. Like that Poetry Jam was a big deal. And many
Yeah.
of us pretended like it wasn't until we got our phone call. And
Mm-hmm,
so, you go on this show, you perform,
mm-hmm.
and people didn't know my name, but they knew parts of my poem.
Mm.
And they'd be like, yo, and they would call you in the streets. And I was like, oh man, New York dope. But then I'm getting on the airplanes and people are like, oh my God. And so
Mm-hmm.
what that did, it propelled me in such a way where I began to talk about race and sexuality at colleges and universities across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, I had the opportunity to perform with two entertainment groups that I really loved. I was able to go on cruises with and things like that for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they would hire myself and another amazing host by the name of Racine Pendarvis,
Mm-hmm.
uh, who would kill me if I told their age. But like this was someone like who like was in the community, and at the time I was living in DC, and then I moved to New York. And
Mm-hmm.
just being able to like do what I love. I've always dreamed. I grew up in Chicago, but I've always dreamed of living in New York.
Mm.
And I knew I wanted to live in New York. So when I got the chance to move at 30 years old, I took it and I ran
Mm.
it. And
Mm.
so and I stayed there for 14 years. Right.
Oh, okay.
And I went there though by way of DC. But the performing was like something, it was my therapy. I couldn't, afford a therapist. So I got on stage and told my truth and didn't care what you thought of me.
That's
While I
interesting.
was under the bright light. Now, here's what would happen. I would do that in the bright light, but
Mm-hmm.
many, 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 many people didn't know how depressed I was,
Mm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
depression would show up as arrogance. It would show up as fear, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I was hiding a lot of depression. I didn't feel wanted by my parents, and so that translated as an adult into that.
Mm-hmm.
But that I would remix my pain, and it would either be really, really funny or really, really provocative. And so I had the opportunity to do that more and more and more. Um, at one point, I left it. I was like, I'm not going to do this because, I felt like I hadn't been discovered yet. I want somebody to discover me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned the power of consistency. I also had to own that I wasn't being consistent.
No, that's my word. I've been hearing that word is coming to me.
You gotta be, if you want it,
That's
you
my
got.
word.
I don't care who's listening right now. If
Yeah.
you want a thing, you got to be consistent. I don't care if it's 2 or 2,000 people. If you
Right.
want something, you got to keep going. And this is the way consistency works. Consistency is married to integrity.
Yes, it is.
So you want to be able to do the thing, but do it in such a way that when you're by yourself, you're doing it so that when people show up, it doesn't feel new to you too. Like that's something that I really like wrap my mind around when it came to like a conversation of abundance, right? It's like how consistent are you willing to be? And I had to own my truth. I wasn't being consistent. What I was being is entitled. Entitlement had got the best of me. I wanted the reward without the work.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned, just like jail, I wasn't pretty enough. Right? Too pretty for jail. But I became too pretty for my own good. I'm like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. Y'all don't even know. Y'all don't know who I am. And people will look around and go, that's the point. Don't nobody know you.
Right. Wow.
And then I had to check myself. But then I began to do transformational work. First as a student, because I have the best friend in the planet. Right?
Yeah, me too.
Introduced me to his work.
Yeah.
And his name is Baron Wright. And so, or artist Baron. And he gave me my first stage play to direct. I directed his play and fell in love with the new part of creativity.
Yes.
and it began to happen. And then I began to direct play after play after play after play. And then I met this amazing woman by the name of Helena D. Lewis. Pardon me, Dr. Helena D. Lewis, social worker, and she wrote this amazing play called "Call Me Crazy," and it went through her life as a social worker. And that play like inspired me. Like it really, really inspired me to really go after it. She's like somebody who I consider to be really, really, really unstoppable. And so I had the opportunity to write my own play. She's like, buddy, she said, Butter, write the play. And I wrote Butterfly Soul for President.
Wow.
And that play, I did is incorporated some of the practices and principles that we do in Momentum. And in that moment, I understood what transformational artistry is. And I was like, oh, I can actually talk to people about this stuff, make them laugh, make them cry, but have them moved in such a way where they leave the conversation feeling like impossible is how they walked in, but they recognize they might have gotten the spelling wrong. It's really I'm possible. And they left with the I'm possible experience.
Yeah.
And so that's what, and now I incorporate my talent into like the workshops and stuff. So I'm funny, right?
That's what I want to do too. When I talk about spirituality and comedy, I want it to not be such a heavy thing, to be comedy. And my comedy show was, we call it the flip side of Reverend G, because it was on the flip side, right? And it was really cool because I kind of struggle with that too, because I wanted to be authentic and I wanted to be who I am. And then I became a minister, and then the conflict is that you want me to be something different, you know, or
who was the conflict for though?
I created the conflict, I guess. I mean, within myself, for other people, right? How are you going to see me in my natural self? As a minister, you're supposed to be a certain way, you know, so just getting past those stereotypes and roles to be who I am. And now I'm very comfortable with being Reverend G. And it was interesting. Your best friend told me, relax, your tribe will come to you, right? And I remember when he told me that, right? Just be Reverend G, your tribe will come to you. And so from there, it's been really great. Because I totally believe in, and I work with the law of attraction. That's one of the things that's really powerful for me.
Yeah,
is just being present to that, right? And seeing how the law of attraction plays out in my life, and being able to share with others how they too can understand and be intentional about the things that they want. And that's a part of the message too, is having the life that you want. You know, what are some of the things that you could do and how we could share that? We wanted to talk about abundance, because that's one of the things that abundance and prosperity go together. I heard you say that, and I love that, right? And people, abundance is a word that people throw out. You know, it's a lot. Oh, abundance, abundance. But what does that really mean? You know, and how do we get to that level of abundance? And I love, I was kind of looking up definitions, and one of them was saying like there's abundance of like love. And then it was cute because it said an abundance of wealth looks like a whole lot of money. And I was like, yes, right? That's what it looks like, right? But then there was a whole spiritual context to abundance also that I saw. And that comes around of joy and peace, all of those things, right? That are really important. So I know you do an abundance prosperity thing. Share, you know, some tips around the ideas, you know, how do we? Yeah,
absolutely. You're like, when I think about you, right? And how you don't look like what you've been through. And then how you, like, they don't know your story, nor do I, to be quite honest. But I know for sure you've lived and you continue to live. and you travel the world and you have this radio show, and then you have the audacity to be Rev G.
Right.
Right. And so having that audaciousness to stand so boldly and say, you know what, this is who I am, and you won't put limitations on me. That's abundance.
Mm-hmm.
The prosperity is the result of said abundance. This radio show, your beautiful husband, your amazing daughter. Like, it's really like checking into your results, not having the prosperity part be who you are, but occur as a result of who you are. Abundance, since we're talking about spirituality, abundance really is a conversation in faith, right?
Yes.
We talk about faith without works is dead. A great trainer that I love, his name is Dayton. He said, well, Butter, have you ever considered that works without faith is stupid? I'm like, oh, that's what, because imagine working to lose. Or like struggling, like you're working to struggle. So you're only working to pay your bills. You're only working to pay the rent. You're only working to pay the car note, if you have a car, right? And so you're working to like not even meet your needs, but just to survive, right? That's the conversation that we sometimes find ourselves in. Or we have abundance as, I have this money in the bank, I'm gonna spend it up and get all these things, right? Not realizing that we're operating in the place of scarcity. What abundance is, it is spiritual, because abundance is not something that you create, it's something that you experience.
Yeah.
But the way abundance occurs, right? How many times did you stop to take a breath? How many times did you think about the breath you were taking?
Wow.
That's how close abundance is. What we do is make it something else. Like, I love that picture on your flyer, right? Like, to me, that's how I experience God. That's how I see abundance. Like, how do you explain clouds? How do you explain the ocean where you have to go back, but you don't have to replenish it, but you keep going back every summer?
Right.
The ocean is here. Well, let me go back to the, hey, the ocean. What we do, though, we go to the ocean with like instead of like filling up the bottle, the tankers and all that other stuff, we take the bottle cap, we open the bottle, the empty bottle off. We put the bottle on the table. We go to the ocean of abundance with a cap.
Right.
Right? And we take that cap, we fill it up, but then we waddle all the way back home with this little bit of abundance. Before you know it, you just spilled most of it.
Right.
Wasted your abundance on little stuff, right? You know, ooh, I want to, please help me find a parking space. You found the parking space because you have faith that you'll find the parking space, but you don't have faith that not only that your needs can be met, but your wants can too. Right?
Faith,
I believe inside of faith, regardless of what your faith is. Some people call it God. It could be chair. I don't know what that is for you, but I believe that a lot of things will meet you at your faith place. Right? You can't out abundance your own faith.
Right. Wow.
Right. And so if you want to attract that abundance to you, we just get to check in. We may have to sometimes do a faith check. Big is my faith.
Right.
Yeah. It's like an oil. It's like you go get the oil change. Like, oh, I need to fill up. Like, when you find your abundance take like running on low, fill it up. Fill up that abundance tank. Like, how do I fill this abundance take up? You go back and check your evidence. You may not have all the money in your bank account, but you got some. How did you get that? What way you got that money? Right? Like, you may also be somebody who's looking, and this is the way abundance works. Abundance is not just about financial gain. Right? It's really about you taking the time to really have those things that you want. It could be a loving marriage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? It can absolutely be health. Right? Because we're like, I'm doing good on these iron pills, on these hard pills, on this diabetes medication, because we're no longer trusting ourselves to make the change. We're trusting the doctor or the pharmacist.
Exactly.
Right? And that's still occurring, believe it or not, that can even occur as like scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
But the abundance can really be go to the gym.
Yeah. Eat
Release the weight.
Right.
Release the weight. I think abundance also allows us, because we can become obese with scarcity.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I want somebody to love me, so you pick anybody.
Right.
Right? And then like I want to live in a house, but you live in like one of the worst neighborhoods because you didn't declare big, right?
Wow. Yeah.
You declared small.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got the result of that small declaration as opposed to declaring big and then working inside of your faith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when did you know you wanted a radio show?
Right.
How did you know what it was gonna look like, what it was gonna look like? Over
Right.
there in your dope gaming chair that's super comfortable. Right? Like you didn't see that. You didn't like wake up one day and go, I think I'm gonna do a radio show and have a gaming chair. And I'm gonna be comfortable.
Yeah. Right.
On camera.
Right.
You didn't do that. You
No.
start having faith about, you know what? I'm gonna own my voice. Abundance begin to occur. I got something to share. Abundance to begin to occur. You know what? More people need. You know what? I'm gonna share this with people.
Yeah.
In abundance for you. Opened up a radio show.
Yeah.
Opened up a brand and a business.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then now have a product and things like that because you trust yourself inside of abundance. Right? And see, here's the thing: there's abundance and there's being abundant. Right? Because you can be abundant, right, in your thinking.
Yes.
Now, abundance is the experience of being abundant. Right? Because you're intentional about experiencing abundance. You're you're so intentional about it. Like you're touching the mailbox. Those checks are, because some of y'all waiting on stimulus checks.
All kind of checks could show up.
Yeah, all kind. Not only can all kinds, but think about this. It's a stimulus check. What do you think is designed to stimulate? The economy. You get that money to spend it back on who sent it to you.
Right, exactly. Giving it right back to them. They want you to.
So some of us need stimulus faith.
Yes. Ha! How about that?
Yeah, get some stimulus faith. I need some. Please send me my stimulus. If we attacked faith the way we attacked them stimulus checks.
Wow, wouldn't that be something, right? Abundance everywhere, right?
Imagine how our families would respond, because we would be checking on them the way we checking our mailbox, the way we calling IRS, the way we like, and then you starting to talk to people you don't even know. You got your stimulus check? Because I ain't get my stimulus. You got yours?
Right. And no,
faith is contagious.
Yeah.
It's contagious. Like, oh no, you got how do I know? I got evidence. Look, I got it. I know you got it. Moved. It's like you start to talk to people different.
You do, yeah.
Before you notice and before you realize it, you're the stimulus.
Yeah.
Now let's talk prosperity. Prosperity is that conversation. It's the result of that abundance. And so the thing about the prosperity piece of the conversation, it's really the opportunity to look at your results. Not from a place of judgment, not from even a place of more, but absolutely from a place of different. This is what this is, and this is getting me here, but I need something different in this place. Because more sometimes will cause us to not be grateful for what we have.
That's true.
Different would allow us to see what we have, appreciate it, but recognize if I just apply what I did to get this, I can make this different even over here, right? Because some of us will find that it's not the more that we need. It might just be the difference that we deserve. Now, you think about abundance and prosperity. We miss the word "and" often in our conversation.
Right.
And is an agreement. And is an agreement. Abundance is faith. And is the agreement. And prosperity is the answered prayer.
Okay.
And so that's what it looks like, right? It looks like that. It's faith in agreement with your answer prayer. It's not just praying the prayer, it's choosing the
Mhm.
prayer.
Choosing it, yes.
It's like really like getting up from that experience of prayer and faith, like I got this. But
Mhm.
not I got it, it's coming, I got it. I'm in the experience of it.
Yeah, right.
And so
And
now when it shows up, you're like, see?
yeah, I knew it. I knew it. You know, it's bringing to my mind, you know, there are a couple of things. It's bringing to my mind the whole idea of being, right?
Yes.
And being versus doing versus that whole thing. You know, I know in Momentum we talk about the be, do, have. And I can remember being in a place of really trying to understand what being was about, right? And what did that really mean? And I really get it now, who I am being, then that's what I will attract unto me, right? And then the idea of abundance being the feeling, the experience of abundance, then will bring the evidence of abundance. Is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, right? I like that description of it. I usually so that's really beautiful. One of the things I do like to get to is, and we are going, man, talking about the spiritual toolkit, right? And what would you say would be your top three spiritual practices that, like, your go-to practices?
My go-to practice, one of them is self-talk.
Oh, okay.
Right. Because I think in order to access the spirit, you have to talk to it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big thing for me, really talking myself into myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, growing up in like years and years and years of abuse and that trauma and retriggering said trauma, I have to stop sometimes and go, you are not that little boy right now.
Mm,
Like you
mm,
get to fly, you get to soar. This is who you are. There's more for you. The other thing is prayer. I believe in prayer.
yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
believe, I believe in prayer. I really, really, really believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in myself inside of prayer. I believe
Mm,
also that my prayers are answered.
mhm,
Right.
mhm, mhm,
So and what I've gotten, what a practice that I'm really beginning to enjoy a lot more and more and more is meditation.
mhm,
It's envisioning my life. It's envisioning the abundance. It's envisioning love and things like that, and then allowing, and then getting to getting to a place to receive those things that I've envisioned.
mhm,
You
mhm.
know, like, all right, let me see. You know, it's something simple as seeing yourself in a car and then like go driving it or something like that, so that you can have the experience of it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I
And
love that.
so, yeah, so meditation, you know, that's another one for me. Like being able to sit with myself
Mhm,
and quiet the world just for a couple of minutes
mhm. It's powerful.
and just
I
love.
look at meditation too as getting my answers.
Mm. Okay.
Prayer,
Okay.
prayer is talking and verbalizing what it is that I want, and sitting in meditation is receiving it and being able to hear and being
Yeah.
able to know what's my move. So, because I always say, you know, how do you hear God? How do you hear what God is saying to you? And it's through meditation that you can get messages. I mean, you can hear God in many ways through other people, but I find for me, meditation is a powerful space for me to get very clear, as you said, to hear, to feel what my next move is, and to set intentions, to visualize. Visualization is really, really a powerful thing too, because you know that they say if you can't see it, you can't have it. If you can't see yourself having this thing, right? Because I mean, so people are like have it out there and not even be able to see themselves as a part of it, it won't happen. If you can't see it, you can't have it. So I love that.
It's what you just said. Like if you can't see yourself in it, then go ahead see yourself without it.
Yeah. How about that?
If you can't see yourself with it,
Right.
it can't occur. It can't live
Right.
unless you're willing to see it live.
Exactly.
right? And so it gets to live in you. I think too, it's important though, also, because we can be like deep around messages. I think,
Mm-hmm.
it's important too to really, listen to your mess as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Your
And we.
mess will your mess will shout a message.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your mess will listen. Bad credit
Mm.
message.
Message, right? Listen, I follow Michael Beckwith, so I've been through a lot of different spiritual places, and I
Uh-huh.
follow Michael Beckwith, and he used to have this saying that we use with my friends: "What is the meaning of this mess I find myself in?" Right? And it's like owning that mess, right? And using that mess, as you said, there's a message in the mess, right?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I used to run marathons and I ran track for years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you should know is that I've not been on a track field and I've never ever run a marathon. But I was in many a situation with a jogging suit and sneakers on because I was unwilling to be with the mess. I was always on the run, trying to get. I was always on the run, trying to. And like what meditation does, it really slows me down to listen to my heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing about the running I got very clear about, I couldn't outrun me.
Mm-mm. You
The
was
moment
right.
I stood still long enough, I was right back there. And so
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And then being able to see myself, I first had to see myself as abundant,
Yeah.
right? And attached to that conversation, I know we have time to talk about a lot, but attached to abundance is worthiness.
Wow, that's a huge, huge, huge. We got to come
Mhm.
back. We got to
How
have
do
a
you
whole
not see
conversation.
yourself? How do you not see
Word.
yourself with a thing? Find yourself worthy of it.
Yes, that's big because that's a conversation for many people because until you can find yourself worthy, it's just not gonna happen for you.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not.
big.
It's not.
Yeah,
And some of us need to be reminded.
yeah.
Don't
Oh,
let my geography confuse you. There
mm-hmm,
are times when I have to remind myself.
mm-hmm.
I got to get back to my GPS. Like, hold up, wait a
Right.
minute, where am I at?
Yeah, yeah.
And then like get back to me, like, hey, you. Because the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that we also don't talk about as the reverends or the trainers and the things like that is our own humanity.
Yeah.
Because we can preach you, listen, we can
Mm-hmm.
share a sermon or a message, teach a course. It could be good. But that imposter in you will be like,
Mm-hmm.
when you gonna do that?
Yeah. Yeah. We
And
you gonna do that?
I approach any training that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So me and God have these kind of conversations, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
I go into a training, I'm like, what? I'm like, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you're about to say something. But like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm showing up to an intimacy workshop, I'm like, I worked on this. I got it.
Yeah.
Because I think what people think is that because you're delivering a course or training,
Mm-hmm.
that somehow it's a me and y'all as opposed to a us and a we. I'm
Mm.
never standing in front of a room as the teacher. I'm
Mhm.
always the student.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'm
get that.
always the student. The experts, we're all
Mm-hmm.
experts. We're all in the room. But
Mm-hmm.
as a student of life, I am always looking to learn and improve.
Yes.
Right. And so
Absolutely.
that's something that I really had to like. I had to get that. I'm glad that lesson was given to me early, so that I have
Mm-hmm.
to chase it. But
Right.
when I got it,
Right.
I was like, oh,
Mm.
so I learned this from you, and I
Mm-hmm.
take it to this place. So whenever I approach the workshop, like, oh, what we about to learn today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I got the
Absolutely.
distinction, I got the tools, I got all the information. You're
Mhm.
gonna have that.
Yeah.
What we about to walk away with, we are
Yeah.
meeting.
Absolutely.
And
That
nothing,
is
that's why they
so
don't look the
good.
same.
Yeah. So it has been a pleasure. So many more things. I want to talk about the mental health stuff. I want to just talk about, oh my gosh, so many things, right? But the
All right, I
time
can talk
is.
about mental health real quick.
Go ahead.
Go to therapy. Okay, go ahead.
What's the name? That's beautiful. Go to therapy, right?
Therapy is like Oh my God. It's the highest form of self-love. Go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, it was great having you here tonight, and I'm sure it was great. People got a lot, and I love the conversation, and I appreciate and love you, and thank
We
you
love
for
you.
joining me. I'm gonna call you again, and we can continue this conversation. It'll be Reverend G and Butterfly Soul Part 2.
Let's do it.
Yes.
I love
All
you.
right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me tonight, Reverend G. And you can find me here every Monday night on WEMS Radio from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can also find me on Facebook as Rev Grenetta, on Reverend Grenetta Briggs Mason, and his Instagram that is Rev Grenetta. I am so excited to share with you each week, and I want you to think about this week abundance and prosperity. And don't forget about faith. Have a great week and live your best life with grace and ease.